stop right there. Before you answer that message, before you write that paragraph, before you prepare that long explanation to prove you are not what they accused you of being, let me tell you something. Removal is sometimes wiser than reaction. Silence is sometimes stronger than speech. Distance is sometimes more spiritual than debate. Because the moment you react to a person who has already shown you they do not honor your peace, you have given them evidence that they still have access to your spirit. You think every accusation deserves an explanation. It does not. You think every insult deserves a response. It does not. You think every act of disrespect deserves a dramatic exit speech so they can finally understand what they did. They will not. Some people are not confused about your pain. They are depending on it. Some people do not want clarity. They want control. They are not asking questions because they are searching for truth. They are creating noise because noise gives them a place to hide their dishonor. Do not misunderstand me. I am not telling you to become cold, bitter, proud, or unreachable. That is not wisdom. That is injury wearing a crown. I am telling you that your peace is not public property. Your nervous system is not a courtroom. Your calling is not supposed to stop every time somebody misrepresents your motives. You were not designed by God to spend your life proving your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. The wise do not wrestle with every voice. The wise discern which voice has been assigned to sharpen them and which voice has been sent to drain them. Counsel builds. Commentary distracts. Correction restores. Contempt reduces. You must know the difference, because if you do not know the difference, you will hand sacred energy to common noise, and then wonder why you are too tired to obey God. There are people who profit from your reaction. They need you angry. They need you defensive. They need you explaining yourself again and again because your reaction makes them feel powerful. But hear me clearly. You do not owe a reaction to anyone who has proven they cannot honor access to your life. Peace is not weakness. Restraint is not fear. Silence is not surrender. Sometimes silence is the sound of a person who finally remembered they have an assignment. And if you are in a season where God is teaching you to steward peace instead of perform pain, stay connected to teachings that call you back to purpose, because this is not about avoiding people. This is about becoming governed. This is about learning that access is not a right people earn once and keep forever. Access is a stewardship decision. And when people mishandle the door, wisdom changes the lock. Access is not a small thing. Access is not casual. Access is not something you throw around because you are lonely, because you are kind, because you are tired, or because somebody knows how to make you feel guilty. Access is a sacred door, not a public road. A road is for traffic. A door is for permission. A road allows anything to pass through. A door has hinges, locks, keys, and ownership. And until you understand the difference, you will keep letting people drive through places in your spirit where God intended only trusted voices to enter. You were designed by a creator. That means you are not random. You are not an accident. You are not emotional debris floating through life waiting for anybody to define you. You were manufactured with assignment, destiny, capacity, and spiritual responsibility. And when a manufacturer designs a thing for purpose, he also designs instructions for how that thing should be handled. You do not take a delicate instrument and throw it into careless hands. You do not take a vessel made for holy oil and treat it like a garbage container. You do not take something designed for destiny and expose it to people who only know how to mishandle what they do not understand. Let me tell you something. Purpose requires protection. Assignment requires boundaries. Destiny requires stewardship. Anything valuable has restricted access. The bank does not leave the vault open because it loves the public. The airport does not remove security because it wants to appear friendly. The palace does not give every visitor a key to the king's chamber. Why? Because value determines access. The more valuable a thing is, the more governed the entrance must become. So why do you keep giving unqualified people entrance into your emotions, your plans, your private decisions, and your future? Do not confuse love with access. This is where many people get trapped. You think if you love somebody, they must be allowed into every room of your life. That is not love. That is poor stewardship. Jesus loved the multitude, but he did not explain everything to the multitude. He fed crowds, taught crowds, healed crowds, but he did not take crowds into every private moment. Even divine love practiced selective access. Love can be generous without being naked. Love can be kind without being careless. Love can forgive without reopening the door to the same dishonor that wounded you. You can love people and not give them the code to your emotions. You can pray for people and not tell them your next move. You can honor people and not let them sit in the control room of your future. You can be compassionate and still be unavailable for confusion. Hear me clearly. Access is spiritual currency, and careless access can bankrupt your peace. Every time you let the wrong person into the wrong place, you spend something. You spend attention. You spend energy. You spend clarity. You spend sleep. You spend focus. And some of you are not tired because life is too heavy. You are tired because too many unauthorized people have been spending what God gave you for purpose. Now, immature people will call your boundary rejection because they benefited from the absence of structure in your life. They liked you better when your doors had no locks. They liked you better when your yes was automatic. They liked you better when your guilt was easy to activate. They liked you better when they could interrupt your peace and you would call it loyalty. But the moment you become governed, they call you different. The moment you stop explaining everything, they call you proud. The moment you stop allowing emotional trespassing, they say you changed. Yes, you changed. You became a steward. And here is rule number 1. Do not give permanent access to temporary people. Do not give permanent access to emotional people who love you today and punish you tomorrow. Do not give permanent access to jealous people who clap when you are struggling but grow silent when you rise. Do not give permanent access to people who only respect you when you are useful, available, convenient, and easy to control. That is not relationship. That is consumption. They are not walking with you. They are withdrawing from you. You must stop confusing history with covenant. Just because someone has known you for years does not mean they are qualified for this season. Just because they were present in your pain does not mean they can be trusted with your promise. Just because they had access before does not mean they should have access now. Seasons change. Assignments develop. Capacity expands. And as your purpose matures, your access must mature with it. Before you can know when to remove access, you must understand why access is powerful. Access shapes atmosphere. Access influences decisions. Access feeds thoughts. Access can either strengthen your obedience or weaken your discernment. This is why the door matters. This is why the key matters. This is why your peace must be protected. Because the wrong access does not just bring people into your life, it brings their spirit, their fear, their jealousy, their confusion, their appetite, and their limitations into the place where God is trying to build your future. And this is why reaction is dangerous. Reaction feels like strength when you are wounded, But many times reaction is just the old you asking for the microphone again. It is the unhealed version of you trying to prove it is still alive. It is the former season knocking on the door of your discipline, saying, "Come back out here, fight like you used to fight, explain like you used to explain, break down like you used to break down." Stop right there. Every invitation is not an opportunity. Some invitations are traps dressed like conversations. You must understand this. Some conflicts are not designed to solve anything. They are designed to pull you back into an old version of yourself. They are not trying to bring peace. They are trying to test whether you still worship chaos. They are not seeking understanding. They are checking if the same button still works. Because if the enemy can get you to react from the place God delivered you from, he can make you question whether you were ever delivered at all. That is a lie. Growth does not mean you cannot feel the fire. Growth means you no longer become the fuel. Reaction is the language of the ungoverned. Restraint is the evidence of authority. Remember that. Reaction says, "You control me." Restraint says, "I have been trained." Reaction says, "My peace is still in your hands." Restraint says, "My spirit has a government." This is not weakness. This is not fear. This is not pretending you were not hurt. This is dominion. Anybody can explode. Anybody can answer insult with insult, accusation with accusation, foolishness with foolishness. But it takes spiritual maturity to stand in the presence of provocation and refuse to give your future to a moment. When people can predict your reaction, they can manage your behavior. If they know that one disrespectful comment will make you lose sleep, they will use it. If they know that one accusation will make you write a speech, they will use it. If they know that one cold silence will make you chase them, beg them, explain yourself, and shrink your standards, they will use it. Predictable reaction creates emotional control. But when you become disciplined, you become difficult to manipulate. When your spirit is governed, people can no longer lead you with bait. They can throw it, but you do not have to bite it. Let me tell you something. Every reaction costs energy. Every defense costs focus. Every argument costs attention. Every emotional performance takes something out of the treasury of your purpose. And not every person deserves to spend what God gave you for destiny. You cannot keep giving sacred strength to unserious people. You cannot keep pouring assignment energy into arguments that produce no fruit. You cannot keep stopping your obedience because somebody decided to be offended by your boundaries. Your future is too expensive for that. Not reacting does not mean nothing happened. Do not misunderstand me. I am not telling you to deny dishonor. I am not telling you to call disrespect love. I am not telling you to spiritualize abuse, tolerate manipulation, or pretend that betrayal did not cut you. No. Wisdom sees clearly. Wisdom names things accurately. Wisdom does not need drama to validate discernment. Not reacting means you have decided that your future is too expensive to spend on emotional performance. It means you can recognize fire without jumping into it. It means you can see foolishness without becoming foolish. It means you can feel pain without letting pain become your master. Some of you are exhausted because you keep explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Hear me clearly. Explanation without honor becomes entertainment for the dishonorable. If a person does not respect your heart, they will not be healed by your paragraph. If they are committed to twisting your motives, more words only give them more material. If they have already decided who they need you to be in their story, your explanation will not free you, it will feed them. You are not obligated to keep handing evidence to a courtroom that has already decided the verdict. There comes a point where silence becomes strategy. There comes a point where restraint becomes warfare. There comes a point where your refusal to react is not avoidance, it is obedience. Because God did not call you to spend your whole life proving you are different. He called you to be different. He called you to become so governed, so focused, so rooted, so anchored, that the storm can make noise around you without becoming noise within you. So the goal is not emotional numbness. Numbness is not healing. Numbness is injury going quiet. The goal is spiritual government. The goal is not to stop feeling. The goal is to stop being ruled by what you feel. The goal is not to become unreachable. The goal is to become unavailable for manipulation. The goal is not to act like it did not matter. The goal is to decide that purpose matters more. When you reach that place, you stop feeding fires you were called to outgrow, and you start protecting the oil God placed on your life. And here is where discernment must become sharper than emotion. You cannot keep judging people by what they promise after they have hurt you. Promises can be emotional. Apologies can be emotional. Tears can be emotional. But patterns reveal character. A person can apologize because they are sorry, and a person can apologize because they are afraid of losing access. You must know the difference. Repentance changes direction. Regret only changes language. Stop letting one emotional apology erase 10 consistent patterns. Stop letting one soft conversation make you ignore months of dishonor. Stop letting someone say, "I did not mean it," when their behavior keeps meaning the same thing over and over again. A repeated pattern is a message. It is not confusion. It is communication. It is telling you what they respect, what they do not respect, what they value, what they will violate, and what they expect you to tolerate. Wisdom does not need endless injury before it makes a decision. Some of you keep asking God for a sign, and God is saying, "I have been showing you the pattern." Repeated disrespect is a sign. Manipulation is a sign. Gossip is a sign. A person who drains your spirit every time they get close is a sign. Contempt for your boundaries is a sign. Mockery of your growth is a sign. Chaos after every conversation is a sign. If every interaction leaves you confused, heavy, anxious, guilty, and distracted from your assignment, stop pretending you are discerning nothing. You are discerning plenty. You are just afraid to decide. Now, do not misunderstand me. Everybody who cannot go with you is not evil. Everybody who loses access is not a demon. Everybody who does not fit your next season is not your enemy. Some people are simply misplaced, and misplacement can be as dangerous as malice. A good thing in the wrong place becomes a problem. Water is good in a cup, but water in your lungs can kill you. Fire is useful on a stove, but fire in your bedroom becomes destruction. It is not always about whether a person is bad. Sometimes it is about whether they are assigned. You must learn the difference between counsel and commentary. Counsel corrects you toward destiny. Commentary criticizes you toward confusion. Counsel may confront you, but it will not belittle you. Counsel may challenge you, but it will not enjoy your weakness. Counsel may disagree with you, but it will protect your purpose. Commentary just talks. Commentary feeds doubt. Commentary studies your growth so it can find language to reduce it. Commentary does not want you whole. It wants you unsure. And if you cannot tell the difference, you will reject the voice God sent to sharpen you and embrace the voice sent to scatter you. Some attachments are not loyalty. Hear me clearly. Some attachments are fear wearing familiar clothing. You call it history, but it is fear. You call it loyalty, but it is dependency. You call it love, but it is guilt. You call it patience, but it is delayed obedience. You are not staying because God told you to stay. You are staying because you do not want to be called different. You do not want to be misunderstood. You do not want to grieve the version of that relationship you hoped it would become. But hope without evidence becomes self-deception. Love without wisdom becomes exposure. Mercy without boundaries becomes a doorway for repeated damage. You can forgive a person and still recognize the pattern. You can pray for a person and still close the door. You can wish them well and still stop giving them access to the rooms where God is rebuilding you. Discernment is not just seeing. Discernment must decide. If you see the pattern and refuse to respond with wisdom, you are not being patient. You are postponing obedience. Discernment without decision becomes delayed obedience. And delayed obedience still costs you peace. So when patterns speak, stop waiting for apologies to confirm the truth. Let wisdom answer. Let peace answer. Let the fruit answer. Then move accordingly. And here is rule number 2. When removal is necessary, remove access quietly, clearly, and without turning your boundary into a performance. Do not make a stage out of what was meant to be a door. Do not turn wisdom into an announcement. Do not turn obedience into a public trial. A boundary loses power when it becomes a performance for the people it was meant to protect you from. Some of you are still reacting, but now you are calling it a boundary. You write the long message. You post the indirect statement. You gather the witnesses. You tell everybody what you are no longer tolerating. But inside, you are still hoping the person who dishonored you will see it, feel it, regret it, and come back with the apology you wanted. Stop right there. That is not freedom. That is reaction wearing religious clothing. If your boundary still needs their emotional response in order to feel complete, you have not removed access. You have only changed the method of begging for recognition. There is a difference between communication and announcement. Communication brings clarity where honor exists. Announcement seeks witnesses for pain. Communication says, "This is what I can and cannot continue." Announcement says, "Somebody watch me prove I am hurt." Communication is clean. Announcement is crowded. Communication is for relationships where there is enough honor to receive truth. Announcement is often for places where honor has already died, but ego still wants an audience. You must learn the difference, because if you confuse the two, you will keep feeding the same fire with new language. Do not misunderstand me. Some exits require a conversation. Some relationships deserve clarity because there has been covenant, investment, maturity, and mutual respect. You do not disappear from honorable people just because a hard conversation is uncomfortable. But not every exit requires a debate. Not every boundary requires a courtroom. Not every closed door requires a speech. The level of explanation should match the level of honor present. If they have honored your heart, give clarity. If they have repeatedly weaponized your words, give less access. If they have turned every explanation into another opportunity to manipulate you, stop handing them material. Removal does not always look dramatic. Sometimes removal means you stop sharing private plans with people who secretly compete with your future. Sometimes it means you reduce emotional availability to people who only call when they need to unload chaos. Sometimes it means you decline the repeated toxic conversation that always ends with you drained, guilty, and distracted. Sometimes it means you stop answering bait. Sometimes it means you take longer to respond, say less, explain less, reveal less, and pray more. Sometimes it means you create distance without hatred, silence without bitterness, and privacy without revenge. That is maturity. Maturity does not need to slam every door. Maturity knows how to close it. Maturity does not need to insult people on the way out. Maturity knows that peace is not proven by volume. Peace is proven by government. You can leave quietly and still leave completely. You can be kind and still be firm. You can be loving and still be unavailable. You can bless a person and still stop giving them a front row seat to your obedience. But prepare yourself, because people who benefited from unlimited access will often misname your peace. They will call your peace pride. They will call your maturity coldness. They will call your boundary offense. They will say you changed. They will say you think you are better. They will say you are acting strange. No, you are acting governed. You are acting healed. You are acting like somebody who finally understands that not every knock deserves an opening. Not every demand deserves an answer. And not every emotional fire deserves your oil. Do not let their accusation become your instruction. The moment you let the person who dishonored the door define the lock, you have given them authority again. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them create their version. Your assignment cannot be managed by people offended by your peace. If they needed your chaos to feel close to you, then your healing will feel like rejection to them. Remove access quietly. Remove it clearly. Remove it without hatred. Remove it without performance. But hear me carefully. Removal is not complete just because their number is blocked, their seat is empty, or their messages go unanswered. If their voice is still enthroned in your mind, they still have access. If you left the relationship but kept rehearsing their accusations, you only moved physically. Now you must become free internally. Now hear me. You can remove their number and still keep their voice. You can block their messages and still let their criticism preach to you every morning. You can walk away from the table and still rehearse every sentence they spoke over your life. That is not freedom. That is relocation. You moved the person out of your phone, but you left them in your throne. And anything enthroned in your mind will eventually govern your obedience. You must understand this. Access is not only physical. Access is emotional. Access is mental. Access is spiritual. Some people have not talked to you in months, but they still decide how you feel when you wake up. They still decide whether you start the business, whether you answer the call, whether you apply for the opportunity, whether you believe God, whether you take the next step. Their opinion became a ceiling. Their criticism became a chain. Their memory became a remote control. They are gone from your presence, but they are still controlling your posture. Stop right there. Do not celebrate a blocked number if you are still obeying an internal voice that God told you to outgrow. You have not fully removed access until their voice no longer governs your obedience. If you cannot move until you imagine what they will say, they still have access. If you cannot rejoice until you wonder whether they will approve, they still have access. If you cannot obey God without defending it to people who already dishonored you, they still have access. Real freedom is not when they stop speaking. Real freedom is when their speech loses authority. A seed cannot grow in poisoned soil. I do not care how strong the seed is. I do not care how great the potential is. I do not care how beautiful the future inside that seed may be. If the soil keeps receiving poison, the growth will be attacked at the root. And some of you keep asking God why you are not growing, but your environment is still accepting poison. Your mind is the soil. Your thoughts are the atmosphere. Your meditation is the climate. And if every day you keep replaying their insult, their betrayal, their accusation, their rejection, you are watering the wrong thing. You cannot keep rehearsing conversations God already delivered you from. You cannot keep returning in your imagination to arguments that produced nothing but confusion. You cannot keep practicing replies to people who are not even in the room. That is mental slavery. That is emotional permission. That is letting yesterday collect rent in today. There are some conversations you must stop attending in your mind. There are some accusations you must stop answering in private. There are some memories you must stop feeding with repetition, because whatever you rehearse becomes stronger. Do not misunderstand me. Healing may require you to process pain. Wisdom may require you to name what happened. Counsel may require you to speak truth in a safe place. But there is a difference between processing and rehearsing. Processing brings understanding. Rehearsing brings bondage. Processing leads to release. Rehearsing keeps the wound open. Processing says, "This happened, and I must learn." Rehearsing says, "This happened, and I must live there." No, you are not called to live at the address of your injury. And forgiveness does not mean you hand the key back. Let me make that plain. Forgiveness releases the debt. It does not automatically restore access to the vault. Forgiveness clears your heart from revenge. It does not cancel your responsibility to govern the door. Forgiveness means you are no longer demanding payment from them for your peace. But wisdom means you do not put sacred things back into careless hands because you feel guilty for becoming free. The vault is valuable. Your peace is valuable. Your focus is valuable. Your assignment is valuable. You do not reopen the vault because somebody says, "I miss the old you." The old you was available for confusion. The old you was addicted to explanation. The old you thought love meant unlimited access. But the governed you knows better. The healed you forgives without surrendering discernment. The mature you releases without re-entering bondage. So clean the soil. Clean the conversations in your head. Clean the imagined arguments. Clean the secret need to prove that you were right. Clean the altar of your mind from voices that did not come from God. Because peace is not just the absence of people. Peace is the presence of order. Peace is when your thoughts stop bowing to chaos. Peace is when your obedience no longer waits for permission from the people who wounded you. And remember this, peace is not the destination. Peace is the environment where purpose starts moving again. God did not give you peace so you could sit still forever and admire your silence. He gave you peace so your assignment could breathe again, your discernment could sharpen again, your courage could rise again, and your future could start walking without dragging the weight of unauthorized voices behind it. And this is why rule number 3 is necessary. Do not make your progress dependent on someone else's understanding, someone else's apology, someone else's approval, or someone else's emotional development. Hear me clearly. Your assignment is too important to be postponed until unhealthy people understand why you chose peace. You cannot put purpose in the waiting room until every offended person becomes mature enough to bless your boundaries. You cannot hold your future hostage to the conscience of people who benefited from your confusion. Stop right there. I know what you are thinking. You're thinking, but if I move on, they will think I did not care. If I keep going, they will think it did not hurt. If I stop explaining, they will think they were right. No, that is the trap. You are still letting their interpretation govern your obedience. Moving forward does not mean it did not hurt. Moving forward means hurt is no longer qualified to lead. Moving forward does not mean you are avoiding the issue. Moving forward means you have obeyed the lesson. There is a difference between avoidance and obedience. Avoidance runs from truth. Obedience walks toward purpose. When God calls you forward, staying behind to prove your pain can become disobedience disguised as loyalty. Some of you are calling it loyalty, but it is fear. You are calling it patience, but it is paralysis. You are calling it love, but it is emotional captivity. You are standing in a place God has already released you from, waiting for people to understand a decision that heaven already approved. That is not maturity. That is bondage with spiritual language. Build quietly. Heal honestly. Decide firmly. Forgive deeply. Move consistently. Do not build your life around the hope that someday they will finally see what they did. Do not let your next step depend on their awakening. Do not keep your gift buried because somebody still misunderstands your silence. Your future does not need their permission to breathe. Your assignment does not need their apology to continue. Your obedience does not need their approval to be valid. The enemy does not always stop destiny through destruction. Sometimes he stops destiny through distraction. Sometimes he does not have to make you sin. He only has to make you stay in the same conversation for 3 years. He only has to keep you explaining, defending, rehearsing, reviewing, proving, and circling the same emotional mountain until your energy is gone. Endless conversations can become cages. Emotional loops can become prisons. And if you are not careful, you will spend the strength God gave you for building on arguments that have no future. You were designed by a manufacturer. That means you came with purpose. You are not random. You are not an accident. You are not here merely to survive other people's immaturity. You are here to fulfill an assignment, and anything that keeps pulling you away from that assignment must be judged by wisdom, not sentiment. Sentiment remembers history. Wisdom recognizes direction. Sentiment says, "But we have been connected a long time." Wisdom says, "But where is this connection taking me?" History is not always authority. Familiarity is not always assignment. Now understand this. Forward motion may feel strange at first. Peace can feel unfamiliar after seasons of chaos. When you have lived around confusion long enough, calm can feel empty. When you have been trained to react, silence can feel like weakness. When you have spent years explaining yourself, quiet obedience can feel irresponsible. But do not confuse unfamiliar with wrong. Sometimes peace feels strange because your nervous system has been baptized in storms. Sometimes order feels uncomfortable because disorder became normal. Stay with peace until peace becomes familiar. Do not run back to chaos because calm feels new. Do not reopen the door because silence feels awkward. Do not start another argument just to feel connected to what God delivered you from. Let your spirit learn a new rhythm. Let your mind learn a new atmosphere. Let your days learn what it feels like to move without emotional interruption. You are not losing yourself. You are recovering yourself. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. And the fruit of maturity is not louder arguments. It is cleaner decisions. The proof that you are healed is not that you can out-talk them. It is that you can obey God without dragging them into every step. The proof that you are free is not that you can explain the boundary perfectly. It is that you can live the boundary consistently. The proof that you have grown is not volume. It is direction. It is discipline. It is peace with movement. So keep moving. Keep building. Keep becoming. Keep obeying. Let them grow when they grow. Let them understand when they understand. Let them apologize if they ever become able. But do not pause your assignment at the gate of their immaturity. God did not give you purpose so it could wait for everybody's permission. He gave you purpose so your life could bear fruit. And fruit does not argue with seasons. Fruit simply grows. So here is the final rule, and I want you to receive it with your whole spirit. Do not react, do not rehearse, and do not return to chaos just because chaos is familiar. Do not let old confusion become your comfort zone. Do not let old arguments become your address. Do not let old access become the thief that walks back into your life smiling because it knows you have not learned how to lock the door. We have said it plainly. Access is sacred. It is not a public road. Reaction is costly. It spends energy that was assigned to your purpose. Patterns are messages. They do not need endless explanations before wisdom believes them. Boundaries can be quiet. You do not need a stage to obey God. Inner freedom matters. It is not enough to remove their number if their voice is still ruling your mind. And forward motion proves maturity, not noise, not defense, not revenge. Movement, discipline, peace with direction. When you stop reacting and start governing access, your life becomes too focused to be controlled by chaos. That is the goal, not to look strong, not to prove you are healed, not to make them regret what they lost. No, the goal is government. The goal is order. The goal is to become so aligned with your assignment that disorder no longer has permission to interrupt your obedience. You were not created to be controlled by disrespect. You were not manufactured by God to be manipulated by guilt. You were not designed to live delayed by people who mishandle what heaven is building inside you. Your peace is not weakness. Your boundary is not bitterness. Your silence is not defeat. Sometimes your quietest decision is your strongest act of obedience. So I challenge you today. Identify one place where access must be reduced. Not discussed for another year. Not explained to everybody. Reduced. Identify one reaction that must die. That message you keep wanting to send. That argument you keep rehearsing. That defense you keep preparing for people who have already decided to misunderstand you. Let it die. And identify one purpose-driven action that must begin immediately. Make the call. Write the page. Start the plan. Apply for the opportunity. Pray with discipline. Build with focus. Move with peace. Do not wait until you feel perfectly ready. Start right now. Start right where you are. Start with the peace you have. Start with the wisdom God has already given you. The fruit will speak. Your consistency will speak. Your clarity will speak. Your healed decisions will speak. You do not have to keep announcing your growth to people committed to misreading your life. Let your fruit do the talking. And if this is the truth you are choosing to live, declare it plainly. I choose peace. I guard access, and I keep moving in purpose. Put it where your own eyes can see it. Let your spirit hear your decision. I choose peace. I guard access. I keep moving in purpose. And if this teaching helped you recognize that boundaries are not bitterness, but stewardship, then stay connected to what strengthens your spirit. Subscribe so you can keep growing in wisdom, discipline, and purpose. Share this with someone who is learning to protect peace without losing love, because the next season of your life cannot be governed by old chaos. Choose peace, guard access, keep moving, and let your fruit speak louder than your reaction ever could.